Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national television channel, Doordarshan, about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations and India's engagements with key countries and regions of the world. Viewers, this is a special episode where we are featuring voices from the global south. 36 outstanding young diplomats from 35 countries of the world have assembled here in the studio to talk about the aspirations of the global south, India's engagement with the global south, what they're learning here as part of a special training program organized by the Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service of the Ministry of External Affairs of India, and what their takeaway is from this India experience. We're going to be talking to them about all these elements. So, folks, welcome to India and to Indian Diplomacy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, great. So you're all here and undergoing this course at the Sushma Swaraj Institute. And I want to start with one of the building blocks of the Global South's aspirations, which is to make a fairer and a more just and equal world order, right? This is our driving aspiration. The reason why we all come together as Global South is to remake the world order. And the building block of the world order are institutions, right? So I want to start with institutions. You're all studying about international institutions, how we're trying to reform them, how we're trying to make them more responsive to the needs of the global south, and how we're trying to democratize them, right? And that is our big vision and objective. So on this count, from what you've learned so far and what your own governments back home do, I want to start by asking some of you to come forward and talk about institutions and how we can make them just and more equal. And what is our strategy as Global South as a whole and of your country? And how can we advocate for change and bring about change in institutions that seem to be still driven by the power politics and by hierarchical ideas? So how can we, make this really a kind of an uplifting exercise and change the international institutional architecture? Would anyone want to come in on this, please?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Federico Rocha from Colombia. Thank you so much for having us here, and thank you for the Indian government for this very successful training program. So I think that the global, we are already succeeding in reshaping the global institutions nowadays. Mm-hmm. I think the global institutions can no longer reflect the realities of 1945. We need to start talking about the realities of nowadays, and we have been very resilient and very strong as the global South nations in having a unified voice in tackling transnational issues that affect us all. And we cannot tackle these issues without the global South nations. So for example, issues like global, like climate change, biodiversity loss, right? So recently, India hosted the AA Summit, which was very successful. If I can give you some examples of my own country, we hosted in 2024 the COP16 of biological diversity, right? This year, in February 2026, we hosted the second conference, International Conference of Agrarian Reform and Rural Development. In April 2026, we are hosting the first international conference on just transition away from fossil fuels. Mm-hmm. So we have a strong voice now in the global south. Now, I believe that as a strategy, I think our nations, we are united with a very with a common history. We share a common history, right? Many of our nations emerged from colonialism, from appropriation and extraction of our natural resources, of our even human capital, of our knowledge. And as global South nations, and I see it myself in multilateral negotiations, we are no longer willing to accept to repeat this kind of patterns of
exploitation,
right? So I see in the multilateral negotiations a very unified global South, very resilient, and we can only produce change if we are unified.
Right. I just want to take you up a little further on these, big multilateral events and summits that you have been hosting. India is also hosting major ones, and this is often a way to convene countries around the table and to also set the agenda, right? So are we able to set the agenda, you think, or is it still, the P5 and the permanent members and the big powers and only the rich countries that can set the agenda? How can we set the agenda in these institutions? Ultimately, when we say development centric, institutions and, make them responsive to the poorer nations and all that, do you think we are able to get through on this front, or do you think that this is just seen as, rhetoric and behind this, the same old patterns? Because if you ask ordinary people in our countries, many of them have very, less hopes about the UN and about multilateral institutions, and they say that, they are not serving our needs anymore. So you think, how can we set the agenda,
Yes, thank you. So I believe that, for example, this kind of international conferences are a good way to set the agenda, to host this international conference in the global South nations. And also, I believe that it's very important to include civil society in this type of discussions, because they are the one that are, of course, like the population are the most affected in these transnational issues. So, for example, in the case of Colombia, with biodiversity. So we have the indigenous peoples and local communities that are affected by the biodiversity loss and the extraction of the natural resources without their prior informed consent. So it is important for them to have a say, like for them to be on the table in these kind of negotiations and in this kind of conversations that affect us all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Viewers, our friend from Colombia, important country in Latin America, is saying that unity is our strength. We have strength of numbers, we have strength of solidarity, we have strength of the shared historical experiences of colonization and of wanting to level up the world order after centuries of exploitation. So involving civil society is also very critical, and so that is not just the states but also the people on the ground in our vast domains in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, in Europe also we have some developing countries, and in Oceania. If you add up all of that, that's the majority of the world's population, and they need to be stakeholders in these institutions. Important point. Okay, I want to go a little deeper now into institutions. One of the things that India has been doing and which has been very impressive is creating new institutions. Is not only reforming the big, universal multilateral institutions, but also form new ones that, respond to our interests and also give us a leadership role in shaping the world order. So you have all at the Sushma Swaraj Institute been learning about some of the institutional innovations made by India, right? So you have learned about the International Solar Alliance that was created by India. You've learned about the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the Global Biofuels Alliance, the Big Cat Alliance. There's so many in different issue areas where India has innovated and has taken the lead or has co-led. I mean, some of these initiatives are not entirely India's, brainchildren, but have been formed by a coalition with a few other like-minded countries. So let me take you there and ask you what you think about these new institutions that India has created. I think most of your countries are already have already joined or will be in the process of joining these institutions, right? And second, historically, these kinds of institutions have been created, new ones, by rich and powerful countries of the global north or through their push, right? But how is it that now within the global south we are able to create these institutions? And is this a sign that now, finally we have reached a stage where we are able to really, restructure the world order? So anyone, any thoughts on India's institutional innovations and whether more such institutions can be created from other, enterprising developing countries? Would anyone like to come in on this, please? Yes, sir, please.
Okay, I'm by name James Manyang from South Sudan. It is my pleasure to be here. Namaste. Yes, the institution in India form, these are vital institutions. As global source, we cannot be independent institutions that are not responsive to us. We can form other institutions that can help, that can be responsive, that can be inclusive, and also technologically innovative to our market. For instance, as a global source, we have capabilities and strengths of forming institutions and making our institution vibrant. We have voice as a global source, 130 countries, and these voice can also reform the multilateral stations. For instance, like United Nations, we have been seeking a reform in United Nations Security Council, and there's no reform. African Union do the same to Asian countries, and it has never been effective. But if we have some other institutions that can give pressure to the permanent members, this will be a call for inclusivity within a multilateral station. Again, as African, as a global source, our population is very high, and we cannot compare 1960s to currently. I'd say my brother before. Our population has risen, and our level of education has also grew. For instance, if we could talk for counties that were in 1960s, the illiteracy rate was very low, and the level of consumption was also very low. Currently, in urban centers, the immigration from rural centers to migration areas is very high, and this is an indication that our market is expanding as a global source countries. Also, we are a littoral state. For instance, as African countries, we have much part of the Africa let's say in East Africa, we are the routes that we control, like for instance, like a Man al Madef. This is the route benefit most of the African and even the world. So we do see ourselves, we are strategically located as a global source. This will make us a good partner to the world, and our voices will be heard. So this is how I see the reform in the multilateral forums, and with the new financial structures, for instance, like BRIC countries, it is also an important step also, because financially we have been dependent, and this dependency is not making our market vibrant, is not making our development to prosper. So with this new development, we see a prospect. Maybe it will bring a change to global south. So in that regard, it will be an appreciation for India as a member of global south to also perform this airline, like Big Cat airline, Solar airline. This will be very important, and it will be helpful in our market and to our people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. Our friend from South Sudan, one of the newest member countries of the United Nations, a recently formed nation state in Africa, is saying that there is a surge domestically in our global south countries with more optimism around rising middle class and also the ability to influence global economic outcomes. And therefore, if more innovations are done, they will then help to benefit the people who are already aspirational and already rising within our societies. So far, viewers, we have spoken about institutions and institutional reform and institutional innovation. There's one more very important new initiative that India has been spearheading, which is the Artificial Intelligence Impact, AI Impact Summit. We have co-hosted one with France and in 2025, and in 2026, we have hosted one here in New Delhi. And all these diplomats, Global South young diplomats, had the opportunity to participate in the AI Impact Summit and to actually see with their own eyes how the governance and the regulation and the innovation in this most cutting edge field is being driven through Indian leadership and Indian involvement. So I want to bring in these aspects now. Even as part of your course, you've all been learning about not only AI, but also our digital public infrastructure, our technology-driven innovations, and also fintech, financial technology. These are areas where, India has a lead among the developing countries. And some of, for example, our unified payments interface, UPI, is being adopted in dozens of countries around the world. So there are certain things that India is doing which has gotten it global recognition and is also practically useful, especially in the developing world, right? So what do you think we can do more in these technology fields so that it generates higher growth and wider benefits for all our peoples? Because even here, we don't have the lead, right? I mean, most of the advanced AI work is being done in financially highly endowed countries, not in resource-poor countries like ours. So usually, there is a correlation between high per capita income and advanced technological innovation, right? So even though we are able to do frugal innovation, we don't have the same kind of investments and resources in quantum computing or artificial intelligence as rich countries do, right? So there is a gap, right? And you've all been talking about it in your classes here at the Sushma Swaraj Institute, and you saw that AI divide and the digital divide, as it used to be called, and how it needs to be bridged. So I want to bring you in on that aspect. Would someone like to speak about technology and the gap in technology and how we can bridge the gap? And because that is ultimately the currency of power, right? Today, they say that, oil was driving global growth and economic prospects in the 20th century, and things like AI will drive the same things, same phenomena in the 21st century, right? So if we cannot afford to be left behind. So how can we catch up with the leaders who are already up there and, spending billions or even trillions of dollars in AI, for example? We don't have the resources. So how can we still innovate, and how can we still benefit from this wave that is, so transformative? So let's talk about transformative technologies. Anyone want to come in on this? Yes, please.
This is Khulud from Egypt. First of all, I would like to thank you for having us here today. I would like to thank the External Ministry of Foreign Affairs for organizing such a great program. So I really like the idea that we were accompanied to the summit of the AI in India. This just brought to my mind that Egypt and India shared a huge history of cooperation and collaboration as well. Additionally, this brought to my mind that we are on the same page, as Egypt hosted this February a summit for AI everything for Africa and Middle East.
Wow, yeah.
So we are on the same page. Actually, we So you have just said that there is a gaps between the North countries and the other South countries to fill. Yeah, there is a gaps, especially when it comes to spending money. But actually, most of the global South country, they are not in the need to spend a lot of money, as our aim is not to compete with the other countries to have such an AI model as in the North.
Yeah, they call them large language models. Yeah.
Yeah, we can just have like a smart targeting of what we really need. We really need just to target the AI to some agriculture issues, some health issues, and etc. So it's all about targeting, not really spending a lot of money. Secondly, you mean the gaps when it comes to educational? Maybe we can work on deploying more AI in the university and education in schools. This gonna help our countries a lot. Lastly, maybe we can just have like sharing with friends and partners from all over the world our experiences. As I said, that we have just did the same with the Middle East countries and Africa. So sharing the same experience with the other partnerships would be great. This going to let us having like a full experience with being half of the coast, or maybe less.
Thank you so much. Viewers, our friend from Egypt, important strategic partner of India and key player in Africa and in the West Asia or Middle East region, he's saying that sharing is important, and obviously we innovate not just for ourselves but also to uplift our sisters and brothers across Africa, Latin America, and Asia. But what is also interesting is the point she made is that we don't have to imitate the gigantic AI that is being built by big tech companies of the US, for example, or the DeepSeek of China. I mean, they've poured in billions into these models, and we don't have to do that, and we can actually still have effective AI that addresses the needs of our people, which may be different from the needs of advanced economies. And I think that's an important point. Any other thoughts on the AI summit and what you saw? And anyone else wants to come in on artificial intelligence and technology and how we can, make advancements in these fields despite our limitations?
Hello, my name is Jonathan, young diplomat from Mongolia. And within this program of Global Soft Young Diplomat, we had an opportunity to attend the Global AI Summit, which held in India and in New Delhi. And while we were having not only good sessions about AI, but also we had the chance to watch and get acquainted with the new technology which being developed by another small startup companies. Also, while I was going around there and watching those innovative startups, I noticed that there was a very interesting project which is about protecting information which are used in the AI program, in other AI programs.
Data protection. Yeah,
data protection.
Yeah.
And they said that even though they said that project is at the level of study, I really liked it, because when AI, that topic of AI is driving by, we are using it our daily basic life, and we are helping worried about probably those companies and those AI giants may be using our data, and someday they're gonna use against us. So that worry and that fear, by watching this project, which made me feel like we are going in the right way, and we are developing AI in right way. And also there are another projects which belong to our daily work. You know that. For example, we have we have a lot of work of documentation. We always work on not the drafts and talks and agreements and anything else. So there are another projects which will help on our daily basis and in doing our daily works.
Thank you so much. Friends, we have a diplomat from Mongolia, which is in between China and Russia, and an important partner for us increasingly in India. And we are engaging with them on many realms, including on trade and connectivity and natural resources. But he is making an important point about the fact that data protection is a matter of great concern for all of us, because if the tools are designed by rich countries or big companies in rich countries, and they have this infinite power over us by amassing all the information about us, and we will need to devise means to protect our, not just a privacy. I mean, even in rich countries, they talk about privacy, and people oppose big tech on those grounds. But here we are talking about we as societies and as a people being monitored and being subjected to a lot of invasive practices in the name of AI or other such applied technologies. So we also, while innovating, also have to design means to protect our own information. We call it data sovereignty, right? Like we should have sovereignty over our own information, and it should be stored in data centers in our own countries and not, in some faraway part of the world from which we could potentially face threats or even blackmail, right? So a very important point, and that's well taken. Okay, we have spoken about technology and AI, but I want to now go back to the core issue which unites us all, which is economic growth and economic diplomacy. You're all serving in your respective ministries back home, and many of you are working on trade and commerce and these sort of issues and on investment issues. South-South trade, intra-South trade among ourselves is now approximately more than 25% of world trade as a whole. In the year 2000, about 25 years ago, at the turn of the millennium, it was only around 10%. So in other words, we are doing a lot more trade among ourselves. And of course, North-South trade is still huge. And there is North-North trade. That's also still huge. But as we grow and more countries emerge as promising market economies with the economic dynamism, we will see more of the intra-South trade and South-South economic exchanges. And you have been learning about economic diplomacy as part of the course at the Sushma Swaraj Institute. So I want to bring some of you in on this aspect of trade and investment. How can we enhance this among ourselves? First, within the global South. Is there anything you have learned here in India that you believe could potentially be a model or something that could connect with your economic strategies in your respective countries? What is the level of engagement you already have with India in trade and commerce and investments? And how can we multiply this? Because through this kind of solid economic cooperation, we can actually lift ourselves up together, and we can all move from low income to middle income and then ultimately to high income societies, right? So this is the pathway. So can we get someone to speak about economic diplomacy?
Namaste, I'm Sergio Benitez from Paraguay. Thank you again for the invitation, and it's my honor to be here. Well, as you see, I'm a representative of Paraguay, a South American country. So we are a landlocked country. So economic diplomacy actually plays a huge has a relevance in our foreign policy, because it's precisely the way that we can actually push for development. So if I am to put it in main strategies that Paraguay put in place to develop, I will say that the first one is to, of course, through Mercosur, that is an integration process that many countries of South America are part of. So within Mercosur, we push for trade agreements. Recently, we signed with the EU, just like India.
India has done one.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we of course we tried bilaterally to look for other trade agreements or to deepen, right? And that is like the first strategy. The second one would be that we try to capture investment, foreign direct investment, Paraguay, through macroeconomic stability. In the last 2 decades, Paraguay has been one of the most stable economies in the region. So we try to give them the security to invest in Paraguay.
Right.
And the third one will be that the Paraguay has a huge surplus of clean and renewable energy, electricity. So it's logically economical because the economy needs energy in order to produce. And the energy in the context of climate change, of course, must be renewable. And
so your wind and solar and all these, or
hydroelectric.
hydro, yeah.
Hydroelectric, yes. So we rely on these 3 key aspects to try to, of course, develop as much as we can. But with this course, I think to sum up, I think we have the chance to witness firsthand of India's best practice, and I think the main lesson that we take here in the aspect of economic development is, of course, the South-South cooperation. And I think that is the main is relevant to this course. It has been really insightful experience.
Thank you so much, viewers. Our friend from Paraguay in South America is talking about South-South linkages and advancing them. We are signing lots of new agreements with these countries in a variety of products and services to enhance these economic linkages. And our friend from Paraguay was also talking about the certain unique advantages that each of our countries have, even as developing countries, even as landlocked countries, which are usually disadvantaged, but they also have some USPs. And the strategy always is to use those USPs, for example, in renewable energy, in the case of Paraguay, to be able to then leverage it to attract more foreign investment into a country. So I think that's always been a rational strategy, but more integration within the South will actually open more doors, and that's the big message. We spoke about economic diplomacy a bit now. I want to now shift to culture. You are all here in this training course at the Sushma Swaraj Institute, and you've had the opportunity to travel to central India. You've been to Madhya Pradesh, and you've gone to one of our great temple complexes, the Mahakal, and you've also visited some amazing heritage palaces of our kings from previous centuries. So you've seen the civilizational heritage and the unique, rich culture of this country to some extent. So I'd like to hear from you your experiences of witnessing Indian culture, and what is it that appeals to you within Indian culture as a whole. And from what you've seen, please tell us what your impressions were when you went to Ujjain and to Indore and these places, in central India, and saw these grand monuments. What does it tell you about this country? And do you relate to something back home which is similar? Yes, please.
Thank you to be here. I'm Valeria from Bolivia. For the experience visiting the historical monuments of India was very and truly inspiring. For us, as a country that shares some millenarian cultures, was very interesting to see how Indians balances his heritage and cultural cosmovision of the world, and with the innovation in other sectors. It was something that really stands out. And for us, in my country, that we share some many other cultures that were very not so relevant back on time. We are now to integrate it more in a cultural way. Cultural diplomacy is very important. That's why we are like my country has a new Ministry of Tourism, Cultures, Folklore, and Gastronomy. So we believe that our heritage is very important also for development. So now that we are sharing this course and seeing some experiences in India, we know that we can have this in common with the Global South. And that's why we need to be more connected. And I see it as an opportunity to share the experiences in this area. So I really appreciate that for in this travel that we have.
Thank you so much. Bolivia, it was an important country in Latin America and known for its indigenous civilization, which is now rising after centuries of colonization. And it's a very fascinating land. And the fact is, the diplomat from Bolivia is also able to see some similarities between architecture back home and here in India. And she's also talking about how the culture is deep and entrenched in our societies, and therefore we can only validate each other through cultural exchanges. Any other thoughts on the history tour and the monuments you saw and the cultural engagements that you witnessed here in India when you went to Madhya Pradesh?
Thank you for having us here. I'm Ana Carla Guevara from Cuba. It was really a good experience, a transformative one, because not only professionally, also personally, because it was really full of spirituality. And then I suppose that it shows us that the power that culture have, the power to unite us, even if our political differences are really, really big. If we focus on this importance of the culture and the power that they have, we will be better.
Wow. Cuba, we have great love and admiration for Cuba going back many decades, and it's been a pillar of the Global South.
Thank you.
And given the distance, and there was also a reference to tourism. Our friend from Bolivia was also mentioning that how can we make this more possible? I mean, the distances, especially Western Hemisphere, is far away, right? And
yes.
We don't have much tourist movement because of the distance, and we also have visa regimes and all these things. So how can we bring more Cubans here, or and have more Indians back in your country to see all these glorious heritage sites and all these things? So what can we do more for tourism, you think?
I suppose that it's not complicated, even if the geopolitical context is really hard. But I suppose that now I see it better, because we share so many things. We are warm people, we are spiritual people, and also we are people who share the values of the cooperation and the solidarity, and this is the whole thing. Then we have to reach how to do it. That is really difficult. But if we focus on that shared values, I suppose that is the way.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, warmth and spirituality, viewers, our friend from Cuba says is a common element of the culture of all our Global South countries, and that's how we can emphasize more of those and enhance the tourist flows, and of course gain greater insight into the history and the heritage of other Global South countries. Often, our history books have been tampered with, and we have received books and writings that claim, that civilization came from richer countries, and that we were all, civilized, or we were all united and made into a single culture or a single nation through colonization. But if you go back and see these places, you realize that, these societies, all of us in the global south, have, long predated the, Western civilization. And the point is, we have built great nations and kingdoms and empires, and these diplomats have seen a glimpse of that when they went to central India. While you have been traveling, you are not only seeing our historical, sites, but also seeing very, very modern and progressive India of the present times, right? You are being exposed to some institutions, and you visited the Indian Institute of Management, IIM, one of our premier business schools, while you were in Madhya Pradesh. And you have also visited the Smart City office in Indore, which is one of India's cleanest and best designed and managed cities. So I want to take you there now. One of the big transformative changes in this country in the last 10 to 12 years in the Narendra Modi era has been, massive emphasis on infrastructure and modernization. And you would not recognize this country if you had come before 2014. So there's been a huge sea change here. And every day, dozens of square miles of highways are being built. Huge, engineering projects are being achieved with gigantic bridges and tunnels and ports and railway modernization. A lot of things are happening in India that can lay the basis for, fast economic growth and for this country to become a superpower in the future. So what about India's modernization, and can it be an inspiration or an example for the global south? All of us need a high quality infrastructure, right? And we are all crippled because we don't have the best infrastructure. We are still way behind, middle income and high income countries when it comes to infrastructure. So let's talk a bit about this modernization aspect, and how can we cooperate and do this together? Yes, sir.
Thank you so much to the Indian government for the invitation extended to Zambia. I'm Libabo Tembo from Zambia. Answering your question, yes, there are lessons to take from India's visit that we undertook in the institute, India's Institute of Management. Mm-hmm. We really saw the importance that India has highlighted in investing in high quality education, which we were able to see how India has invested, how a development in human capital strengthens public administration in the city, and therefore develops or creates individuals with high skills, professionals who are able to drive national developments and national agendas. Mm-hmm. So investment in education is a very, very good thing. And I think Zambia and Global South countries could learn from this by investing in local universities, which will provide higher education. Then secondly, the trip that we undertook to Indo, where we saw the smart city, was very, very impressed. Where we saw waste that in most countries have really difficulties disposing it. But we saw how India is able to get that waste and turn it into something usable for the development of the city, and cleans the city and also helps the people in their day-to-day needs. So I think Zambia and also countries of the Global South could learn very much from this India's initiative of integrating technology and strategic urban planning in cities to be able to assist us move as well. So for me, coming from Zambia, it would be a very great opportunity if India and Zambia could collaborate, if we could have one of these cities, because we saw you're still upgrading, you're still building the infrastructure, as we were able to show the sketches that they're still developing it and still growing it to at a larger extent.
Thank you. Our friend from Zambia, viewers, Southern Africa, important resource-rich country with whom we have very, very long-standing friendly relations, is saying that the things they are seeing in places like Indore in central India can be a model for their countries, and that we could potentially develop these kind of smart city ideas in other parts of the world through bilateral cooperation. And actually, India does these kind of initiatives with many developing countries. And he also mentioned higher education. Now, this is an area where we are now setting up branches of our premier Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management in other parts of the world. And that will help to train hundreds and thousands of young people in those countries also in advanced fields of knowledge. So this is another example where, through South-South cooperation, we can actually give each other a big lift. Anyone else wants to talk about the visit to Madhya Pradesh or generally about the modernity and the modernization elements? Because our Prime Minister has a slogan, Vikas Bhi Virasat Bhi, which means heritage along with modernity and economic growth. And these two, we have tried to carry them together, and as has been mentioned already.
Hello, my name is Luisa. I'm from Brazil. I was here in India 10 years ago for tourism, and I had the opportunity to visit some Indian cities. And coming back here 10 years later, I was very impressed on how India has grown and has grown putting people in the center. It was amazing to see how infrastructure has developed, and in a country with the biggest population in the world, how much lives of people have improved. And what has impressed me the most here, this time that I'm doing the Global South Diplomats Forum, I had the opportunity to learn about a digital public infrastructure that has been done here in India. And I think that could be an example for the rest of the world, especially for the Global South. For instance, digital public infrastructure for disaster prevention and for mapping of diseases. This could be an area of cooperation that could be further explored.
Wow, President Lula was in India recently, and we have a strategic partnership with Brazil, and we are part of BRICS and IBSA and so many other forums. And I think, no doubt, it's one of the most important partners for India in the world. So we're very happy to hear this. And of course, Brazil is a higher income country than what India is. And I think there's much that we can also learn from your infrastructural and even your trade and commerce and your regional integration strategies and all those things. So looking forward to deepening this relationship. Were you there when President Lula was here?
Yes, it was very nice to see us cooperating in this higher level, and I hope our cooperation can further and deepen in many aspects, especially on AI, digital public infrastructures, and India is for sure an example for Brazil in many aspects.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Viewers, Brazil, a huge country of the Global South. Our friend from Brazil is saying that our advances in digital public infrastructure, as in like the virtual infrastructure, it's not only the physical infrastructure, but virtual infrastructure also matters a lot in the digital age, and laying the foundation on the basis of which, economic and financial transactions can happen and governance can improve. This is the whole idea of digital public infrastructure. And these diplomats who are from across the Global South have been learning about India's innovations in this field of digital public infrastructure, where we have a lead. And it's good to hear that something that we have developed, for example, like the India Stack, as it's called, if it can be universalized and if it can be adopted in many countries, I think that's a sign that we are able to innovate for the world and not just for ourselves. And so that's important. Okay, moving forward, I want to, open the discussion to all of you to reflect a little bit on this course as a whole, that you've done, which is under the aegis of the Sushma Swaraj Institute of the Ministry of External Affairs of India. How has this changed you as a diplomat? Because you're not only seeing India, learning from Indian experts and scholars and practitioners, also traveling across the country, and you're also probably getting a different perspective from what you would normally get if you travel to a global north country, right? So what is unique about this experience of being here and undergoing this course, and when you go back, how would you, what would you tell people as what did you pick up the most? What did you learn from this experience of undergoing this course? So anyone would like to come in on your learnings and your overall experience?
So hello, my name is Ling. I'm from Vietnam. So attending this course is an opportunity for me to widen my knowledge on diplomacy. So by covering a wide range of topics from the Global South Cooperation, the India foreign policy to AI development and its impacts. So the course gives me a deeper understanding and insight on how the world is evolving and how we can actively engage in global shaping. Being in India is really a wonderful experience for me. So while I'm in India, I can truly feel the energy of the cities. I can see how vibrant and how diverse the society is. And I also can feel the warmth and the hospitality of the Indian people. And those are like wonderful experience I'm definitely will share with my colleagues and my friends when I'm back home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Vietnam, a major strategic partner of India, very important player in the Southeast Asia. We value this friendship so much, and it's great to hear that Vietnamese diplomats think that India has something to give to them. Any other closing? We are almost out of time. Anyone else would like to come in about your experience of coming to India and being here?
I'm Bodjir Kapati from the Philippines. No? So far, what the course has provided me, and I'm sure my colleagues, is that when certain issues like climate change, use the need to develop our technological capabilities, even migration, for example, when a lot of countries are responding to it, it becomes very resonant. And that's why it's a source of unity for people and countries with the same experience. And with India, we recognize that there is the important role and influence of India in uniting these voices together. So this is the same, recognition that the Philippine government has when we established our strategic partnership in August during the president's visit to India. So that's what I think is a major takeaway from this program.
Thank you so much. Another big strategic partner of India with whom we are doing wide-ranging cooperation, including in security and defense, is the Philippines. And we've had the privilege of hosting their Secretary of Foreign Affairs on this show, Indian Diplomacy on Doordarshan as well. So viewers, we've heard from this, wide range of opinions and views from our Global South young diplomats from so many continents. But I want to conclude the show by requesting Mr. Satish Balakrishnan, who is Under Secretary in the Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service and who's spearheading this training program, to come in and give our audiences, a final thought about why India does these kind of programs, why we bring all these developing countries together around a shared platform for learning and for knowledge exchange, and what is it in our interest that for us to promote these kind of engagements, and how does it advance relations between India and all these countries? Satish.
Thank you, Professor Chaulia, for this opportunity and for hosting this cohort. And most importantly, at a time when there is substantial importance on building of credible narrative as well. When I think about the idea of Global South itself, although the idea has been there in existence as a nebulous thought for quite a while, it is the G20 leadership of India which has given it a more structured existence, starting with the voice of Global South and institutionalization of G20, including the African Union also as a member to it. And speaking on the program itself, this is the 4th Global South Young Diplomats Forum that we are hosting. And this is in fact a platform. It's a platform for all the like-minded countries whose representatives are here to come together and to discuss on every aspect that is important to all of us. And these aspects definitely include things like reforming the multilateral institutions. It includes sustainable and inclusive development. And at the same time, which is also people-centric and environment-friendly, and most importantly, to ensure that there is a seamless flow of finance, technology, and human resource within the Global South, as well as between the Global North and the Global South. In fact, if I have to summarize, I will have to quote EAM Dr. S. Jaishankar. He had an interaction with this very same cohort the last day, wherein he commented that it is very important for the Global South, the developing world, to address the challenges of 21st century while we are simultaneously addressing the challenges of 19th and 20th century. And this is the very spirit of this forum, and in fact, every other training program that MEA hosts. Thank you
so much. Thank you so much to Satish ji and to the Sushma Swaraj Institute. Viewers, this discussion must have opened new vistas and new horizons in your minds, because, you know, the Global South is much more dynamic and much more upwardly mobile than it was, say, 15, 20 years ago. And a lot of this is driven by some of the leading emerging power centers of the world. We heard from some of them, but even the smaller countries now have a newfound sense of self-belief, and they are willing to explore opportunities for collaboration, not just within their individual regions, but across the Global South. And as Satish ji said, also with the Global North. India's commitment to be a voice of the Global South and to amplify the concerns of the Global South in international forums and institutions, and to set the global agenda remains very strong. And this course is an example of that. So going forward, I think these relationships will matter more and more as part of our diversification strategy also. As you know, in this highly volatile and uncertain international environment, India needs more partners across the board, including from the Global South. And we are therefore investing in these relationships so that they become long-lasting. These diplomats, when they go back to their respective ministries, will have a favorable view of India, and will remember this experience, and will, I'm sure, come back and give back to India in some form or the other. And so that's why we do these programs. And the 21st century problems that need to be resolved can only be done collectively. In Africa, we have the concept of the palaver, where people come together and solve an issue through collective will and community participation. This is what we are trying to build here through these programs, a community of the Global South. I want to thank you all for being here, friends. I hope it's been a great learning experience, and please come back to India, and we look forward to welcoming you again.
Thank you.
So that's all, viewers, in this episode, and we will see you next time. And until then, take care.